Captain Yuna stared at the readings on her screen for the third time. The numbers didn't make sense. Her ship, the Nexus Dawn, had been mapping this empty system for 2 weeks. There should have been nothing here except a dying red star and some scattered rocks. "Chris, come look at this," she called to her science officer. The tall, blue-skinned Zentari walked over on his 4 legs. His large eyes studied the display. "That energy signature is impossible, Captain. Nothing that old should still be generating power." Yuna nodded. The readings showed something massive floating in space, hidden behind the planet's rings. Whatever it was had been there for a very long time, but it was definitely not dead. "Take us closer," she ordered. "Nice and slow." The bridge crew worked quietly as their ship moved through the asteroid field. Yuna watched as the object came into view on the main screen. When she saw it clearly, she forgot to breathe. It was a ship. Not just any ship, but something beyond anything she had ever seen. The vessel was 3 times larger than her own exploration ship. Its surface looked like it was made of crystal and metal mixed together in patterns that hurt her eyes to look at. Strange lights moved across its hull like living things. "Captain," whispered Hana, the ship's xenobiologist, "look at those markings. They're not like anything in our databases." "How old do you think it is?" Yuna asked. Tay, their engineer, ran his scanners over the alien vessel. "The energy decay patterns suggest this is impossible. Captain, this ship is at least 50,000 years old." A chill ran down Yuna's spine. 50,000 years ago, most of the galaxy's current civilizations were still living in caves. Only legends spoke of anyone that advanced so long ago. "Sir?" called out Lieutenant Park from communications. "I'm getting something strange. The alien ship is responding to our presence." As if hearing his words, the ancient vessel began to change. The lights on its surface grew brighter. Sections of the hull that had seemed solid began to shift and move. "It's trying to communicate," Hana said, studying her instruments. "But the signal pattern is unlike anything we've seen." Yuna made a decision that would change everything. "Prepare an away team. I want to board that ship." "Captain," Chris said carefully, "that may not be wise. We don't know what kind of defenses it might have." "We'll be careful," Yuna replied. "Hana, Tay, you're with me. Chris, you have the bridge." 20 minutes later, Yuna found herself in a shuttle with her 2 human crew members, approaching the alien vessel. As they got closer, something strange happened. The ship's surface began to glow more brightly, as if it was happy to see them. "Captain," Tay said from the pilot's seat, "I'm reading some kind of scanning beam. It's examining our shuttle. Any hostile intent?" Yuna asked. "No, sir. It feels more like curiosity." As they drew alongside the massive hull, an opening appeared where none had been before. It was clearly an airlock designed for ships exactly like theirs. "How is that possible?" Hana whispered. "This ship is older than our entire civilization." Yuna didn't have an answer. She guided their shuttle into the alien airlock, and the opening sealed behind them. Atmosphere flooded the chamber, and their instruments showed it was perfectly breathable for humans. When they opened the shuttle door, Yuna stepped onto the deck of the ancient ship. The floor felt warm under her boots. The walls around them were covered in flowing patterns that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. "This way," she said, though she wasn't sure why she knew which direction to go. As they walked deeper into the ship, the corridors lit up around them. Strange symbols appeared in the air, floating like holograms. At first they looked like random patterns, but as Yuna watched, they began to change into shapes she could almost understand. "Captain," Tay said nervously, "these symbols are rearranging themselves. It's like the ship is trying to talk to us." "Talk to me, you mean," Hana corrected. She was studying her scanner. "The patterns only change when Captain Yuna looks at them. When Tay or I focus on them, they stay the same." Yuna felt a strange tingling in the back of her mind, like someone was calling her name from very far away. She followed the feeling deeper into the ship. They found themselves in a vast chamber filled with equipment that defied explanation. Crystalline formations grew from the floor and walls, pulsing with soft light. Streams of energy flowed through transparent tubes overhead. At the center of the room stood something that might have been a control console, though it looked more like a work of art. As Yuna approached the console, the entire room came alive. The lights grew brighter, the energy streams flowed faster, and a sound filled the air. It wasn't quite music, but it wasn't quite language either. Somehow Yuna understood what it meant. "Welcome," the ship was saying. "I have been waiting for you." "Did you hear that?" she asked her companions. Tay and Hana looked confused. Hear what, Captain? Tay asked. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The ship was talking to her personally. Not to humans in general, not to her crew, but specifically to her. She reached out and touched the console. The moment her hand made contact, the chamber exploded with light and sound. Information flooded her mind faster than she could process it. Images of star systems she'd never seen, technologies beyond her understanding, and something else. Something that made her gasp and pull her hand away. The ship had shown her its history. It had been waiting in this empty system for 50,000 years, built by a race that called themselves the progenitors. They had been the first intelligent species in the galaxy, but they were gone now, all of them, all except their children, their inheritors, the species they had designed to carry on their legacy, humans. Captain, are you all right? Hana asked, steadying her. Yuna looked at her friends, then back at the console. The ship was still humming softly, still waiting for her response. She had so many questions, but one thing was clear. This ancient vessel, with all its impossible technology and accumulated wisdom, belonged to humanity. It had been built for them, waiting for the day when humans would find it and claim their inheritance. But what did that mean? And what responsibilities came with such a gift? The ship's gentle humming seemed to suggest that she would learn the answers soon enough. For now, it was simply happy to no longer be alone in the dark. Over the next 3 days, Yuna spent every moment she could aboard the ancient ship. Each time she touched the console, more information flowed into her mind. The ship's artificial intelligence was ancient and vast, but it spoke to her like an old friend. It called itself the Guardian Singer of the Long Dark, though Yuna just thought of it as the Guardian. Through their strange mental connection, she learned that the ship had been drifting in space for 50,000 years, waiting for someone who could hear its voice. The progenitors were not just the first intelligent race, the Guardian explained during one of their sessions. They were teachers, builders, creators of life itself. They seeded this galaxy with the building blocks that would become every thinking species. Yuna sat in the captain's chair that had formed itself around her when she first approached it. The chair seemed to read her thoughts and adjusted itself to be perfectly comfortable. What happened to them? Where did they go? The Guardian's response came as a wave of sadness that made Yuna's chest tight. They were destroyed by those who feared their power. The ancestors of what you now call the Hegemony Alliance hunted them across the galaxy until none remained. Images flowed through Yuna's mind. She saw great cities of crystal and light being burned, ships full of refugees fleeing through space only to be caught and destroyed. The last few progenitors working desperately to complete their final project before they too were found and killed. But they had a plan, the Guardian continued. In their final years, they created a special species, one that would inherit their knowledge and continue their work, one that could hear the songs of creation and speak the words of making. Humans, Yuna whispered. Yes. Your people carry the genetic patterns we implanted. Your vocal cords can produce the frequencies needed to operate our technology. Your minds can process the mathematical harmonies that control our ships. You are our children in every way that matters. Yuna felt overwhelmed. She was just a ship captain, not the inheritor of some cosmic destiny. Why me specifically? Why can I hear you when other humans can't? All humans can learn to hear us, the Guardian replied. But some have stronger connections than others. You, Yuna Singer of Stars, have one of the strongest connections I have encountered in all my years of waiting. While Yuna learned about humanity's origins, Tay and Hana explored the ship's other systems. Tay had discovered engineering compartments that contained technologies centuries ahead of anything humans had developed. The ship could repair itself, manufacture new equipment from basic materials, and travel faster than light in ways that didn't require the massive engines other species used. Hana's research was equally exciting and disturbing. She had found biological laboratories that contained genetic templates for thousands of species, including detailed records of how each race had evolved. Most interesting were the human templates, which showed clear signs of artificial enhancement. Captain, Hana reported during one of their daily briefings, the records show that the progenitors didn't just guide human evolution, they actively shaped it. Our brains, our vocal cords, even our capacity for creativity were all enhanced by their technology. Enhanced how? Yuna asked. We're more adaptable than we should be, more creative, better at learning languages and solving problems. According to these records, baseline humans should have developed much more slowly. Tay nodded agreement. The engineering data supports that. Human ships are designed in ways that other species find illogical, but they work better than they should. It's like we instinctively understand principles that other races have to calculate. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent call from the Nexus Dawn. Chris's voice crackled over the communicator, tight with worry. "Captain, you need to return to the ship immediately. We're receiving a priority message from Hegemony Command. They're demanding to know why we've gone silent for 3 days." Una felt her stomach drop. The Hegemony Alliance controlled most of the galaxy's major trade routes and scientific institutions. They were not people you wanted to anger. "Tell them we're investigating an archaeological find," she replied. "Nothing more." "I'm afraid it's too late for that, sir. They've already dispatched a fleet to our location. Admiral Vextar himself is commanding it." Una closed her eyes. Admiral Vextar was known throughout the galaxy as one of the Hegemony's most ruthless commanders. He was a Vorthak, one of the crystalline species that claimed to be the galaxy's oldest civilization. If he was coming personally, it meant the Hegemony considered this situation extremely important. "How long until they arrive?" she asked. 6 hours, maybe less." Una looked around the Guardian's bridge. In just 3 days, this place had started to feel more like home than her own ship. The thought of the Hegemony getting their hands on this ancient technology made her feel sick. "Guardian," she said aloud, "we have a problem." The ship's AI responded immediately. "I am aware of the approaching fleet, Unisinger of Stars. Their vessels carry the energy signatures of the destroyer races." "Destroyer races?" "The species that killed my creators. They have grown powerful in the years since, but they are still the same at heart. They destroy what they cannot control and control what they cannot understand." Tay looked worried. "Captain, what are we going to do? We can't fight a Hegemony fleet." "Perhaps you cannot," the Guardian said, and Una realized it was speaking through the ship's communication system so the others could hear. "But I am not defenseless. I have been preparing for this day for 50,000 years. The lights around them pulsed brighter." Una felt the ship's massive engines coming to life for the first time in millennia. Through the viewports, she could see energy fields forming around the vessel's hull. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Awakening," the Guardian replied. "For too long I have slept in the darkness. But my singer has come at last, and the song of the progenitors will be heard again." Una felt a chill of both excitement and fear. She was about to be caught between an ancient alien AI and the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Whatever happened next, she suspected the galaxy would never be the same. "Guardian," she said carefully, "I need you to promise me something. No matter what happens, we don't start a war. Too many people have died already." "I make no promises regarding the destroyer races," the Guardian replied, "but I will follow the wishes of my singer, as my creators programmed me to do." It wasn't exactly the answer she wanted, but it would have to do. In 6 hours, they would find out if humanity was really ready for its cosmic inheritance. Admiral Vextar's fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, with the precision of a military formation that had seen 1,000 battles. 12 massive warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon, arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the ancient vessel. Una watched from the Guardian's bridge as the Hegemony ships took position. Their hulls were dark metal covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Compared to the elegant flowing lines of the progenitor ship, they looked like instruments of war. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Hegemony Alliance," came the transmission. The Admiral's voice was like grinding stone, harsh and cold. "Captain Una, you will surrender the alien artifact immediately and prepare to be boarded." Una looked at Tay and Hana, who had refused to leave her side when the fleet arrived. Both of them looked scared but determined. She activated the communication system. "Admiral Vextar, this is Captain Una. We are conducting a peaceful archaeological survey. There's no need for a military response." "Do not test my patience, human," Vextar replied. "That vessel contains technology that could destabilize the galaxy. It belongs under Hegemony protection, not in the hands of a primitive species." The word primitive hit Una like a slap. She had heard it all her life from the older galactic civilizations. Humans were newcomers, barely 5,000 years into space travel. Most Hegemony species counted their civilizations in hundreds of thousands of years. "Guardian," she said quietly, "can they detect you listening?" "No, my singer. Their sensors are powerful but crude. They cannot perceive the full range of energies I use." "What do you know about their weapons?" Everything. I have been scanning their vessels since they arrived. Their technology is advanced but predictable. It follows the same principles their ancestors used 50,000 years ago. On the main screen, Una could see shuttles launching from the hegemony ships. Admiral Vextar wasn't waiting for permission to board. "Guardian, I need you to do exactly what I tell you," she said. "Can you prevent those shuttles from docking without hurting anyone?" "Yes, my singer. Do it." The ancient ship came alive around them. Energy barriers sprang up around the hull, invisible but impenetrable. The hegemony shuttles slammed into them like birds hitting a window, their pilots fighting to control craft that suddenly refused to respond to their commands. "What is happening?" Vextar's voice crackled with rage. "Human, what have you done?" "I've done nothing, Admiral," Una replied. "The ship is protecting itself." "Impossible." "Our scans show that vessel is derelict." The Guardian's voice filled the bridge, speaking through the communication system so the hegemony could hear. When it spoke, every electronic system on the alien warships began to malfunction. "I am Guardian Singer of the Long Dark," it announced. "I am the last voice of the progenitors, builders of worlds, teachers of races, shapers of stars. You who destroyed my creators dare to approach my singers with weapons drawn?" Una could hear alarms blaring on the hegemony ships. Their weapons systems were failing, their engines stuttering. The Guardian was demonstrating its power without causing permanent damage, but the message was clear. "This is impossible," Vextar transmitted. "Progenitor technology is a myth." "As my creators were myths?" the Guardian replied. "As the cities you burned were myths? As the children you slaughtered were myths?" Images began broadcasting from the ancient ship to every screen in the hegemony fleet. They showed the final days of the progenitor civilization, great ships burning in space, planets stripped of life, the systematic hunting and killing of the galaxy's first intelligent race. "Your ancestors committed genocide," the Guardian continued. "They feared what they could not control, so they destroyed it. They built their empires on the ashes of my creators." Una watched the reactions on the alien vessels. Some crews were recoiling in horror at the images. Others were arguing among themselves. A few ships were already backing away from the confrontation, but Admiral Vextar was not retreating. "Ancient history!" he snarled. "The weak perish, the strong survive. That is the law of the galaxy." "Is it?" the Guardian asked. "Then explain why my singers can hear my voice when you cannot. Explain why their hands can operate my controls when yours cannot even touch my hull." "What are you talking about?" "Watch," the Guardian said simply. The energy barriers around the ship disappeared. The hegemony shuttles, which had been held at bay, suddenly found they could approach the hull again. But when the alien soldiers tried to step out of their craft onto the ship's surface, they collapsed immediately. "Some kind of weapon," Vextar accused. "No weapon," the Guardian replied. "Only recognition. The ship knows the difference between its creators' children and their murderers." Una realized what was happening. The ship's systems were designed to respond only to beings with progenitor genetic markers. Other species couldn't operate the technology because they literally couldn't interface with it. It wasn't about intelligence or worthiness, it was about biology. "Guardian," she said, "show them the genetic scans." Data streams flowed from the ancient ship to the hegemony vessels. The information was complex, but the conclusion was simple. Humans carried genetic markers that identified them as descendants of the progenitors. Not metaphorically or spiritually, but actually and scientifically. "This proves nothing," Vextar raged. "Genetic manipulation, lies!" But other voices were joining the conversation now. Captains from the other hegemony ships were challenging their admiral's assumptions. Dr. Zalara, a Zentari scientist aboard one of the vessels, transmitted her own analysis. "Admiral, the genetic evidence is compelling. These markers couldn't be faked. They're woven into fundamental human DNA structures that predate their spacefaring civilization by thousands of years." "I don't care about your science," Vextar shouted. "That technology is too dangerous to leave in human hands." "More dangerous than leaving it in yours?" Una asked quietly. The question hung in space between them. Around the ancient ship, the hegemony fleet was dividing. Some vessels were maintaining their aggressive positions, but others were pulling back. The evidence was too strong to ignore. Humans weren't just another young species trying to claim technology beyond their understanding. They were the rightful inheritors of the galaxy's most advanced civilization. "Guardian," Una said, "can you contact Earth? Can you reach other human colonies?" "Yes, my singer." "Shall I wake the other sleepers?" Other sleepers? The network my creators built spans this entire galaxy. Hundreds of installations, all waiting for human voices to wake them. Shall I call them? Una hesitated. Once that call went out, there would be no going back. Humanity would be claiming its inheritance on a galactic scale. The balance of power would shift permanently. She looked at Admiral Vexitar's ship, bristling with weapons and hatred. Then she thought about all the times she'd been called primitive or young, or not ready by species who had built their civilizations. On the ruins of the progenitors, do it, she said. Across the galaxy, ancient installations began to wake, and humanity's real journey was just beginning. The signal that went out from the Guardian changed everything. Within hours, reports began flooding in from across human space. On New Sol, the mining colony that had been struggling to extract rare metals from supposedly barren rock, discovered they had been walking over a progenitor data storage facility for 20 years. The rare metals were actually crystalline computing cores that activated when human miners spoke near them. On Kepler 438b, engineer Dong Mian was working late in the terraforming facility. When every machine in the complex suddenly came online, the atmospheric processors that had taken human engineers 50 years to build were revealed to be primitive additions to a massive progenitor installation that could remake the planet's entire ecosystem in months instead of centuries. Similar discoveries were happening everywhere humans had settled. Ancient ruins that archaeologists had dismissed as natural formations began responding to human voices. Mysterious energy readings that scientists had puzzled over for decades suddenly made sense. They were beacon signals from sleeping progenitor sites, waiting for the right genetic signature to activate them. But the most remarkable change was happening to the humans themselves. Mi Kyung, a terraforming specialist on Wolf 359, was the first to report the dreams. Strange visions filled her sleep, showing her vast star maps and technologies she had never seen before. When she woke, she found she could understand the progenitor symbols that had appeared on equipment throughout her facility. "It's like remembering something I never learned," she transmitted to Earth Control. "The knowledge is just there." Dr. Sarah Kim, head of human xenobiology research, had a theory. The progenitor genetic markers aren't just identification tags, she explained to the emergency council session. They're activation keys. Being near progenitor technology is triggering dormant neural pathways in human brains. On the Guardian's bridge, Una was experiencing the phenomenon firsthand. Each day, her connection with the ancient AI grew stronger. She could access ship systems with a thought, understand languages she had never studied, and perceive energy patterns invisible to normal human senses. "Is this what you intended?" she asked the Guardian during one of their sessions. "To change us? Not change, my singer. Awaken. These abilities were always within your people, sleeping until the proper time. My creators designed you to grow into your inheritance gradually, as you encountered more of our legacy. But some humans are changing faster than others. Yes, those with stronger connections to our legacy. Those who will serve as bridges between your people and ours." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just inheriting progenitor technology. They were becoming something more than baseline human. The changes weren't random mutations, but the activation of capabilities deliberately encoded into their DNA 50,000 years ago. The Hegemony Alliance was not taking these developments well. Admiral Vexitar had been replaced by a joint hegemony council, but their position remained unchanged. They demanded that all progenitor sites be placed under hegemony control for the safety of the galaxy. When human colonies refused, the hegemony began sending military forces to secure the installations. They discovered, much to their frustration, that this was impossible. Every progenitor site was protected by the same restrictions as the Guardian. Non-human species could approach the installations, but they couldn't operate any of the technology or even remain near active sites for extended periods without experiencing severe discomfort. More troubling for the hegemony was what happened when they tried to use force. Their weapons simply wouldn't function against targets protected by progenitor technology. Energy beams dissipated harmlessly against progenitor shields. Kinetic weapons changed course at the last moment, missing their targets by impossible margins. "It's not possible," complained Admiral Thexnor. Vextar's replacement. Our weapons have worked against every target in the galaxy for 1,000 years. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Kala, a Zentari physicist who had been studying the phenomenon, made a disturbing discovery. Hegemony technology was based on principles originally stolen from progenitor ruins thousands of years ago. The current generation of aliens didn't know this. The knowledge had been buried by their governments. But their entire technological foundation was derived from fragments of the civilization they had destroyed. The progenitor installations aren't blocking our weapons, Dr. Kala reported. They're reclaiming them. Our energy patterns are recognized as stolen progenitor technology, and the installations are simply asserting control. The revelation sent shockwaves through the hegemony. Their great technological superiority was built on plagiarism and genocide. Worse, the original owners of that technology were back, and they were not impressed. Una watched the galactic political situation deteriorate from the Guardian's bridge. The ancient ship had become the center of a growing human fleet as vessels from across human space converged on their location. But these weren't just human ships anymore. As humans learned to interface with progenitor technology, their vessels began to change. Hull plating reorganized itself into more efficient configurations. Engine systems upgraded themselves using principles human engineers barely understood. Weapon systems appeared that operated on frequencies unknown to galactic science. Guardian, Una asked during one of their planning sessions, what happens when this is over? When the hegemony finally accepts that they can't control us? That depends on your people, my singer. My creators built this network to serve many purposes. It can be a tool of conquest or a gift of knowledge. It can bring peace or war. The choice belongs to humanity. Tay, who had become the Guardian's primary engineering interface, looked up from a control console that was teaching him advanced starship design. What did the progenitors want? What was their plan for us? They hoped you would be better than those who destroyed them, the Guardian replied. They gave you the power to reshape the galaxy, but they also gave you the wisdom to use that power responsibly. Whether you prove worthy of their faith remains to be seen. Hana, who had been studying progenitor biological databases, added her own concerns. Some of the humans are changing too quickly. The neural activation process is accelerating beyond safe parameters. We're seeing personality changes, memory integration from unknown sources, and in extreme cases, complete psychological transformation. That is concerning, the Guardian admitted. The process was designed to unfold over generations, not years. The rapid activation may have unforeseen consequences. What kind of consequences? Una asked. Your people might lose what makes them human while gaining what made my creators great. The warning was sobering. Humanity was inheriting incredible power, but at what cost? And with the hegemony growing more desperate each day, they were running out of time to find the answer. Outside the viewports, more human ships arrived daily. Each one was different now, modified by progenitor technology in ways that reflected their crew's personalities and needs. The fleet was becoming less like a military formation and more like a gathering of living beings. The question was, what kind of beings were humans becoming? The crisis came sooner than anyone expected. Una was deep in communion with the Guardian when alarms began blaring across the ancient ship. Through her enhanced connection, she could sense massive disturbances throughout the progenitor network. Dozens of installations were under attack simultaneously. Report, she called out, breaking her connection and rushing to the main display. Tay's fingers flew over controls that had reconfigured themselves into patterns only he could operate. It's the hegemony, Captain. They're attacking every human colony with progenitor sites, coordinated strikes across the entire galaxy. The display showed tactical data from hundreds of light years away. Hegemony fleets were bombarding human settlements, not trying to capture the progenitor installations anymore, but attempting to destroy them entirely. They can't operate our technology, so they're trying to make sure nobody can, Hana observed grimly. Reports flooded in through the network. New Sol was under siege by a Vorthak battle group. The mining colony on Kepler 186F was fighting off Zentari destroyers. 3 human research stations had already gone dark. But something strange was happening. As the attacks intensified, the human defenders weren't just fighting back, they were evolving. On New Sol, miner Jin Ho had been working near a progenitor data core when the bombing started. As explosions rocked the colony around him, Something awakened in his mind. Suddenly he could see the quantum patterns underlying the attackers' weapons, predict their targeting solutions, and guide his fellow colonists to safety with impossible precision. On Wolf 359, Mi-kyung found herself able to communicate directly with the planet's progenitor terraforming system. Under her guidance, the installation began generating atmospheric storms that interfered with enemy sensors and grounded their aircraft. The most dramatic change occurred on Kepler 438b, where engineer Dong Min discovered he could interface with the installation's defensive systems. Ancient weapons that hadn't fired in 50,000 years came online. Protecting the colony with technology the attackers had no defense against. The network is accelerating the awakening process, the Guardian explained to Yuna as they watched the reports come in. Direct threat to my singers triggers rapid neural activation. Your people are gaining abilities in hours that should take years to develop. Is that safe? Yuna asked. No, the Guardian admitted, but the alternative is extinction. Your species faces the same threat my creators did. The choice is evolve or die. The human colonies weren't just surviving the attacks, they were winning. But the cost was becoming clear. Each victory came with reports of humans who no longer seemed entirely human. Some spoke in mathematical equations instead of words. Others claimed to see colors that didn't exist and hear music in quantum fluctuations. Dr. Sarah Kim's research team was studying the phenomenon when they made a disturbing discovery. The humans who were changing most rapidly weren't just gaining progenitor abilities. They were losing human emotions and social connections. We're seeing a breakdown of empathy centers in the brain, she reported. Enhanced humans are becoming incredibly capable, but less caring about other people. They're becoming more like the progenitors, Hana realized. The Guardian said its creators were teachers and builders, but what if they were also cold and logical? What if that's why they engineered humans to be more emotional than them? Yuna felt a chill of understanding. The progenitors didn't want us to be exactly like them. They wanted us to be better. The revelation came at a crucial moment. The hegemony attacks were failing, but their desperation was growing. Intelligence reports suggested they were preparing a final assault, not on individual colonies but on Earth itself. They're gathering every ship they have, Tay reported. 12,000 vessels from 47 different species. The largest fleet in galactic history. Target? Yuna asked, though she already knew the answer. Earth. They think if they destroy humanity's homeworld, they can stop the awakening process. The Guardian's response was immediate and overwhelming. This will not be permitted. I will gather my singers and we will protect the birth world of my creator's children. Wait, Yuna said. If you summon every enhanced human to defend Earth, who will protect the colonies? And what happens to the humans who haven't awakened yet? It was the dilemma the progenitors had faced 50,000 years ago. They could fight their enemies with all their power, but in doing so they would abandon everything they were trying to protect. The war would consume them whether they won or lost. There has to be another way, Yuna insisted. The progenitors were destroyed because they chose to fight. What if we choose something different? What do you suggest, my singer? Yuna looked at the tactical display showing the vast hegemony fleet gathering near Earth. 12,000 ships carrying weapons capable of sterilizing planets. Against them, humanity could field perhaps 100 vessels, though each one was now far more advanced than anything the hegemony possessed. An idea began forming in her mind. It was dangerous, possibly insane, but it might be the only way to break the cycle of violence that had destroyed the progenitors. Guardian, can you reach every human in the galaxy through the network? Yes, but doing so would accelerate the awakening process beyond all safe parameters. Many of your people would be permanently changed. Can you also reach every member of the hegemony fleet? Their communication systems are crude, but yes. What are you planning? Yuna took a deep breath. I'm going to do something the progenitors never tried. I'm going to tell the truth, all of it, to everyone. The truth about what? About what the hegemony really is. About what their ancestors did. About what humanity could become. And about what choice we're all facing right now. Tay looked concerned. Captain, if you connect every human to the network simultaneously, there's no telling what will happen to our species. And if we don't, Hana added, there might not be a species left to worry about. Yuna nodded. Guardian, prepare to broadcast on all frequencies to every ship in the galaxy. Human and alien alike. I want everyone to hear this. As you wish, my singer. But remember, once this path is chosen, there will be no returning to what was before. I know, Yuna said. Maybe it's time for that. The Guardian began powering up transmitters that hadn't been used since the fall of the progenitor civilization. Across the galaxy, every human touched by the awakening process felt the call. Enhanced individuals stopped what they were doing and turned their attention to the ancient ship where their captain prepared to change the course of galactic history. In 12 hours, the hegemony fleet would reach Earth. In 12 hours, Yuna would learn whether humanity was truly worthy of its inheritance, or whether they were doomed to repeat the mistakes that had destroyed their creators. The final test was about to begin.